So, continuing on our theme of teams and trust, today I have the joy and pleasure of interviewing Rishan Barat. Now, Rishan is Director Business Applications at Microsoft, based in the Greater Philadelphia region. And Rishan, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. You're talking about some very interesting topics that are near and dear to my heart. So appreciate you inviting me to this and looking forward to the discussion.
So, Rishan, you told
Sounds
me,
good.
and I know you don't like being an arrogant person at all, and I know that you kind of were a bit sheepish even about telling me this, but you had a specific goal with the latest team that you set up. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were trying to achieve with this new team and setting it up?
So for me, the number one thing is how do I make my team the best place to work? How do I have the best culture in my team where every individual around that contributes to the success of this team supports one another at an individual and at a team level? And for me, that's my number one kind of North Star. I feel like the team that I've gotten into now, just had the luxury of coming into the team for the past 2 years, I've inherited a lot of an entire team of great individuals with a lot of good skill sets, a lot of great characteristics, a lot of superpowers, as I label it, just in terms of how to define and activate and execute on success. And so when I look at my role at that, I'm looking at a lot of individuals around me that I represent by title with a lot of great learning opportunities, with a lot of great skill sets that they can contribute, not just to my growth, but to the entire growth of the team. And so when I think about my role, how do I define my North Star based on everything that I'm surrounded by, right? So how do I adapt? How do I define what success looks like? And so when I think about how do I take a great team and elevate the environment and elevate them to be at their best so they can operate at their best, that starts from me creating the best culture and the best place for them to work. Because the moment the environment is set at a foundational level, at a very, very, very high capacity for people to perform at their best, they will perform at their best. And then that organically creates a ripple effect for our people to operate at their best, creates a ripple effect for our customers to be supported the best, our partners to support it the best. And you know what happens with all that? It drives great results.
And people want to work for high performing teams, don't they? There's something about the energy that they're looking for and the connection that comes from performing well together.
Yeah, I was actually talking about this a couple of weeks ago. This in every environment that you're in, especially in our world, we're in sales, we're selling software, we're selling enterprise technology. You deal with a lot of failure, you deal with a lot of loss, and there's something special about losing in a high performing team versus losing in a not non high performing team. There's something special about losing in a good environment versus losing in a bad environment, right? And so, to your point, there's a massive attraction to working for a high performance team, even though there's the high potential of losing at the same time and failing at the same time.
Wow, I mean that's amazing when you can get to that place where mistakes and failures are actually because of the high cohesion in the team, because of the culture in the team, you actually don't feel like it's a disaster. In fact, immediately there's ways of moving forward and so on. So that leads me to a really interesting, because that sounds like a high trust environment for
Absolutely.
to be that comfortable with failures and struggles feels like a really high performance environment. So, how do you get? And I'm going to ask this in two phases. Let me ask the first question: how have you created an environment where people trust you as the leader of the team?
Yeah, that's a deep one. Great question. Deep one. There's a lot of time that I can spend on that one as it pertains to trust because there's multiple different ways you can go at it when you try to create trust as a leader, and it comes from a lot of reputation. It comes from a lot of your credibility. It comes from your track record, but most importantly, it comes from you as an individual. And I think one of the most important things I see with first line leaders is that I'll give you an interesting example. Every single one of us has an area of growth, has an area of opportunity, has an area of development, right? If we're totally honest and self aware with ourselves, when we
Yeah,
look in the mirror, we also have that element of accountability
yeah,
and we
me
can
too.
define areas that we can do better, right? And
Hmm.
so as a leader, what we do sometimes is that we have those dialogues with our leadership team around here's some of the reflections that we have in terms of areas we can grow. Here's the support that we need. But we do that up the line, if you will. So we do that to the hierarchy above us. How often do we take a beat to actually reflect that level of vulnerability and authenticity with the people that we are responsible for in our business, in our teams? And I think when you think about trust, that's a very, very, very important factor for me. Is when we talk about things like authenticity and vulnerability, like what does that really mean? And how self aware are we to reflect the growth areas that we have as individuals? And so for me, that's a number one thing. I never want my team to feel like I am a superhero and I can't do anything wrong and I can't make mistakes. I obviously want them to know that I will try my best to operate at my best in everything that I do, but at the same time, know that I have areas that I can probably do better things at, and I'm continuously evolving and growing. And so, the moment you show that level of clarity to the people around you, it's a fundamental entry into building trust. Then there's other layers around it, which is around integrity. And for me, this is another big thing. Following up from being able to be open about where you'd like to grow and where you'd like to be better, in addition to that is integrity. Like, do I role model what integrity really means? Now, again, perfection is a little bit of a fallacy sometimes in these areas. So you can't be perfect at integrity all the time. There's some days that you're going to fall short. And how do you react and activate your behavior around how you fall short? But how do you model? I always think about how do I model my organizational capability when, if I'm communicating with you, for example, Ian, and you and I have agreed to do this conversation, have I really respected your time to be here? Have I really respected your time to focus on what you're saying and to understand what you're saying? And have I really followed up with you on the things that I agreed to following up with you on, right? And so that's kind of a role model behavior for me in terms of how I want to show up to activate that element of trust with my team. Because you have to have a unanimous level of respect in the activity you perform with everybody around you to build an environment of trust. And I think that's super, super, super important. At the same time, back to the first thing I said, perfection is a little bit of a fallacy. You will fall short. There is going to be a day where the storm is going to kick us out of this call, and I'm not going to be able to follow up with you like the way I said I have, right? The key thing is how do I show up around that? How do I define accountability around that? How do I reflect on my communication with you, right? So I think that's a big thing when it comes to trust. Last but not least, the third piece that I think about with trust is that versatility and adaptability to know that everybody's not the same. Like, diversity is a very, very important factor in the way we lead, the way we build trust. And diversity, it's important for us to recognize that everyone has their own element of diverse sets of skills, experiences, history, legacy, a bunch of other things, right? And it's so important for us as leaders to make sure that when we're talking about trust, we're not painting our approach to everybody with the same brush. And for me, those are the three most important factors that I think about when I think about trust, Ian.
That is fantastic. And I haven't shown you my trust model yet, but it incredibly well aligns with exactly what you've just said. So I'm really, really impressed with that. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. You will then get regular conscious leadership updates in your YouTube feed.